Well, this video is about bipolar 1, mood swings, or manic depressive, sometimes they're called. Some people refer to these people as being mentally ill. There's kind of a catch-all phrase. It's like similar to somebody being sick. You don't really know what's wrong with a person. It may be dysfunctional, it may be not. But in this area of bipolar 1, and the other two names are called, mood swings originally was these names were given because of what people observed. In other words, they saw people going from, one kind of hyperactivity to now to being depressed, and so they see them going from one to the other. Nowadays they call it cycling, or you may be fast or slow or not at all. And then came manic depressive, which you see is very similar. Manic or mania being a lot of activity, and then depressive, being very, very little. Depending on how this particular area of the mind, the chemicals are manufactured to trigger certain switches on or off. Manic phase is still used today. And then they get to bipolar 1, bipolar 2, which really refers to hospitalizations. Bipolar is basically bipolar, really, essentially. But these are terms that were, by and large, given to individuals with this particular kind of dysfunction. It's kind of like having a bum leg or something like that. It doesn't necessarily affect your intellectual capabilities or your productivity. In some cases, it enhances them, or depressive, you maybe take them away. But it's a particular kind of dysfunction that is described from somebody observing these individuals. But being bipolar myself, for over 30 years, and on lithium, 150 milligrams twice a day. It's not a lot, but I have been hospitalized a number of times, usually when my psychiatrist decided to try another medication. Thank you very much, doctor. Anyway, not much could really be improved over lithium, for me anyway. A lot of bipolar people are that way. But I thought that it would be useful to describe this situation of being bipolar from an insider, somebody who has had the condition for some time. And I think that I was being assessed by a psychiatrist at one point, and it was clear he didn't know something, how to make an assessment. So I said, well, look, I didn't tell him I was doing this. Why I was doing this, I just started in. I just said, well, look, are my logical capabilities in line? He says, yes. How about my intellectual functioning? He says, yes. How about my emotional modulation? He says, yes. How about my whatever, and they went about 5 or 6 of these things, and as you can assess what I'm saying and how I'm saying it now, just the same as he could then, and then so I just paused, and I waited, and then he says, well, so what is wrong with you, or what is wrong with you, one or the other, you see, and that was my point, you see, he couldn't tell, even though I was right in the middle of a very manic phase. Okay, well, we'll discuss that in a minute. Anyway, so I said, well, doctor, that sheet of paper you fill out before you come in here for the first time? I said, well, on the last sheet, I checked nearly all of the 7 symptoms. You haven't read it yet, and that's kind of my point about bipolar is you don't necessarily, it's not like schizophrenia or some other things where the prognosis is very poor in some cases, and the medication is not very effective, and can be very different. But being bipolar, it's a very different type of little malfunction in a certain area of the brain regarding production of certain types of hormones, chemicals, or whatever. I don't think they really know all of that yet. They're working on it. But anyway, so the reason this music mixer is in front of you now is to describe from someone who's got this situation, to describe what goes on. Now, you see these sliders. Now, the way the mixer works is each slider has you see the vertical thing, you slide them up and down, increases the volume of a particular frequency or instrument. Like if you've got a conductor there, he's done a piece, and you're the mixer, and he says, well, we need a little the clarinets are a little too low, and so you slide the mixer for the clarinets up. You see, and you increase that volume into the mix in that way, and you go to others and you slide them down or up depending on what the conductor wants to do with the mix. And this is the way a mixer works, kind of, more or less, right? But the analogy is similar to being bipolar, and that is that there are various symptoms, just like sliders. There's sexual interest, exploration, and those kinds of things. There's money matters, spending, and those kinds of things. There is gregarious, friendliness, outspokenness, that kind of thing. There is dreams of grandeur, expressions of grandeur, thinking one is so great, or very those kinds of things. Let's see. There is productivity, working very hard, producing a lot of things. There are 7 particular symptoms which I have not named because I don't know them exactly, but I know that what I have named just now are some of those, and it's all right. It doesn't matter that much, because the idea here is that each one is like a slider on the mixer, and anybody who, it doesn't matter what, you don't have to be bipolar, during your day has those same characteristics, and the sliders go up and down, and mix and go up and down depending on the activity that you're in, right, or what you're doing. Sometimes your happiness, sometimes you're dealing money matters, sometimes you're interested in the opposite sex, it's going, sometimes you're spending money on business, and the sliders are going up and down, some are faster and some are slower, and depending on the situation. Well, if you have bipolar, you have the same characteristics, and the sliders are going up and down all day long just the same. Well, the difference is that the sliders for the bipolar go up a bit higher on occasion. You see, they have the possibility. That doesn't mean they're up there all the time. You see, there's a mix for bipolar all the time, and it may appear normal, see. But on occasion, if it's unmedicated, of course, but even with medication, you can push the slider up too far because of your deliberate actions. And so you can appear manic. For instance, if your activity phase, your productive phase, goes up too high. You see, and maybe all the other 6 sliders are normal or low or depressed, you see. So this is why saying that somebody is bipolar or manic depressive is simplifying the thing from an external position point of view. But internally, there are various aspects. It's just like a person has arms and legs or organs and functions, and there are a lot of different things. They're not just one person, right? You've got different capabilities and qualities like the sliders do for anybody, and these get pushed up by the bipolar internally, not by his direct deliberateness. You see, unlike a quote normal person, where they may increase certain activities and have more deliberate control over the level of the sliders, influence in their day. So that's the dilemma for the person with bipolar condition. It's not a disease per se, as one with microbes and that kind of thing. It's really a condition. And And sometimes caused by hallucinogen drugs. You see, that really needs to be studied. That causes this type of area to go out of whack. So you can have the slider in sex going up. It's not relative to conditions, you see. If you were in the red light district, if you're a normal person, your slider in sex may go up. But for a slider in the sexual interest for a bipolar person, it may go up when he's washing the dishes, for the day, unrelated to what he's involved in, see. Or spending money, doesn't need the stuff, he gets a credit card, goes out, spends money, so the sliders are going up and down. And so a person may be manic in the spending money phase, or manic in the sexual interest phase, or manic in the grandiose, creating grandiose stories on the sidewalk, chatting with somebody, or feeling he's so great. See, so it being in the manic phase doesn't mean all the sliders are all the way up, you see. The sliders are constantly moving around just like anybody's, but on occasion the sliders from the person with a bipolar will go up, seems like arbitrarily, 1 in 3 slider, 4 and 7 slider, 5, 7 and 8 sliders going up. I don't know how to predict which sliders are going to go up or down, and so and then you have, of course, the depressive phase where the sliders go way down, and so the activity is very, very low in all of those situations, and that's something that I don't deal with because I don't think I've ever gone down depressive. I don't think. Maybe on occasion, or very short period of time, I think I kind of thought to myself, I wonder if this is the depressive phase, so that's all that's been for me in like 35 years or so. I've always been up, which is, kind of, I feel like I'm kind of in a sunny disposition, and very productive, and, there's, as I've said in other videos, a lot of very good aspects to that I have experienced being bipolar. Well monitored with lithium. So there you go. I wouldn't do it over again this way, but it's all right. Deal with what you've got, I guess, to the best, and it makes it very good. So that's kind of it, to try to explain when you see somebody who's bipolar, is to kind of look at and see if you know the characteristics. See, somebody was concerned about my being bipolar and off my medication. I said, do you know the symptoms? She said, no. See, and so this is difficult to be concerned about somebody who's bipolar if you don't know the symptoms. See, they may seem to be manic in some way, but you see, if you know the symptoms, you can pinpoint exactly where they are going. See what they are going up, because it's unlikely that they're up. All their sliders are all the way up. That's kind of a pretty unusual thing, I would think. I've never experienced that, but always in one area or other, majorly at a time, one at a time only. Maybe 2 at once, grandiose and being productive when I'm writing or something, maybe those 2 together. But that's it. When you want to think about somebody who's bipolar and you're observing somebody, and of course they may have to tell you they're bipolar, because it's, as I say, I was in front of that psychiatrist with full-blown mania at the time, but he couldn't tell. You see, so how a person who's bipolar deals with the sliders being in various positions is really up to him. You can exacerbate the situation, or you can modify and ameliorate the effects of the sliders in their various positions. Of course, medication, if you need medication, well, you've got to take medication. It's just like blood pressure medication or anything else. If it needs medication to control it within reasonable, livable limits, well, then you got to take it. The situation, if you don't, is the same. It's very, very bad for you. And sometimes, well, it's like anything. Some people need time to realize they need medication. That happens a lot with being bipolar. So if you see somebody bipolar, I hope this gives you a little insight that you need to find out specifically And if you want to read what those 7 symptoms are, that will help you, but you've got to realize that they're not 7 exact symptoms. You see, somebody who's bipolar has his own symptoms, and they may or may not be the 7. He may have 10 areas. See, so the medical 7 characteristics are very useful to start with, but basically you've got to actually get to know the person at the time, just some questions and things to determine kind of like what they're dealing with. They may not be dealing with spending money at all. They maybe never have overspending. Being a lot of people who are bipolar, that's one of the characteristics that a psych will ask them is, are you spending a lot of money, and those kinds of things. But anyway, so I hope that helps a little bit, and hope your mixers are all in good order. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.